The massive fleet appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system without warning. Thousands of black ships emerged from hyperspace, their hulls gleaming like polished obsidian against the darkness of space. Each vessel was larger than any human city, bristling with weapons that could turn planets to dust. Admiral Vexthor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominator. He was a creature of 4 arms and 4 eyes, standing 3 meters tall. His gray skin rippled with satisfaction as he looked at the blue and green planet on his viewing screen. Earth spun peacefully in space, unaware that its fate had just been decided. "Another primitive world," Vexthor said to his officers. His voice sounded like grinding stone. "How many does this make, Commander Zrek?" "This will be world number 301, Admiral," Zrek replied. He was smaller than his admiral, but no less fierce. "Our scouts report minimal space defenses. A few satellites, a small station orbiting the planet. Nothing that could stop even one of our ships." Vexthor's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of his amusement. 301 worlds conquered. The Krathan Empire grows stronger with each passing day. Begin the standard protocol. Demand their surrender. On the human orbital defense station, Commander Jake Sullivan had been drinking coffee when the alarm started screaming. He nearly dropped his mug as he rushed to the command center. The room was already full of officers, all staring at the main screen in shock. "How many?" Jake asked, though he could see for himself. 4,000 ships, Commander," replied Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez. Her hands shook slightly as she worked her console. "They just appeared. No warning from our outer system sensors." Jake took a deep breath. He had trained for this moment for 15 years, but he had hoped it would never come. Humanity had known. They were not alone in the universe for 2 centuries. They had hidden, watched, and prepared. Now, it seemed, their time of hiding was over. "Open all communication channels," Jake ordered. His voice was steady despite the fear in his chest. "Broadcast in every language we know." He stood straight and spoke clearly into the communication system. "Attention, unidentified vessels. You have entered the sovereign space of the United Earth Federation. State your intentions. Be advised that any hostile action will be met with appropriate response." The bridge of the station fell silent. Everyone waited. Seconds felt like hours. Then came the reply. The main screen flickered to life, showing the interior of an alien bridge. Admiral Vexthor appeared, his 4 eyes focusing on the camera. When he spoke, the universal translator converted his words into English, though his contempt needed no translation. "Primitives of Earth," Vexthor said, his voice booming through the station's speakers. "I am Admiral Vexthor of the Krathan Empire. Your world now belongs to us. You have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally. Those who surrender will be allowed to serve the Empire. Those who resist will be destroyed. There will be no negotiation." The transmission ended. The screen went dark. Jake turned to his communication officer. "Get me Secretary Chen. Now." Within moments, Lisa Chen's face appeared on a secure channel. The Secretary of Defense was in an underground bunker somewhere in North America. Behind her, Jake could see generals and advisors moving quickly. "Commander Sullivan," Lisa said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were hard. "I assume you've made contact." "Yes, ma'am, the Krathan Empire. They're demanding surrender within the hour." Lisa nodded slowly. "Then it's time. Send the full disclosure warning. Everything." Jake hesitated for just a moment. "Ma'am, if we reveal our capabilities..." "They need to know what they're walking into, Commander. Maybe they'll be smart enough to leave. Send it all." Jake nodded and turned to his team. "Prepare the full disclosure package. Everything we've kept hidden, all of it." His fingers moved across his console, accessing files that had been sealed for decades. Technical specifications, weapon yields, energy production statistics, the locations of hidden bases throughout the solar system, the true extent of humanity's expansion beyond Earth. On the Krathan flagship, a communication alert chimed. Vexthor waved a hand dismissively. "The primitives wish to beg. Put them through." But Jake's face did not show fear when it appeared on the screen. Instead, he looked sad, but determined. Admiral Vexthor, Jake began. What I am about to share with you is not a threat. It is information. We are providing you with complete transparency about our defensive capabilities. Data began streaming across the Krathen systems. Vexthor's four eyes widened slightly as he read. Gravitational pulse weapons with yields measured in gigatons, Jake continued, his voice steady. Antimatter production facilities producing 300 kilograms per day. 47 colony worlds hidden throughout nearby star systems. A network of 200,000 automated defense platforms disguised as asteroids and space debris. Nanoswarm clouds dormant in our atmosphere, capable of dismantling any technology at the molecular level. The list went on, and on, and on. Our sun, Jake said, is surrounded by hidden energy collectors. What you see as empty space contains 17,000 concealed weapons platforms. The moon you see orbiting our world is hollow, converted into the largest mass driver weapon in this galactic sector. Vexthor's bridge had gone quiet. His officers were running calculations, checking the data against their sensors. This is impossible, Commander Zrek whispered. Their world shows no signs of such development. Their cities are primitive. Their visible technology is centuries behind ours. Jake heard the comment through the open channel. We learned long ago that advertising your strength invites challenge. We chose to develop in secret. For 200 years we have been preparing. Lies. Vexthor snarled, though doubt crept into his voice. No species could hide such advancement. Every piece of data we've sent is accurate, Jake replied. You can verify it yourself. Send probes. Scan more carefully. You'll find that what looks like a debris field near Jupiter is actually a fleet of 800 battleships powered down and waiting. What appears to be a mining operation on Mars is a planetary defense grid. Lisa Chen appeared beside Jake on the screen. Admiral, I am the Secretary of Defense for United Earth. We have no desire for war. We have remained hidden specifically to avoid it. But we will defend ourselves. You have our complete military assessment. We hide nothing from you now. Please take your fleet and leave. There are thousands of worlds in this galaxy. Earth is not worth the cost you'll pay to take it. Vexthor's four hands clenched into fists. The Krathen Empire has never retreated, never surrendered. You think these numbers will frighten us? We have conquered species that span dozens of worlds. And we have spent 2 centuries preparing to face someone exactly like you, Lisa replied softly. This is not a bluff, Admiral. This is a courtesy. We are showing you our hand because we believe even conquerors can make rational decisions when presented with facts. The channel remained open. Both sides waited. On the human station, Jake watched his countdown timer. 43 minutes remained of the hour the Krathens had given them. Admiral, one of Vexthor's officers spoke carefully. If even half of this data is accurate. Silence, Vexthor commanded. He stared at the image of Earth on his screen. Such a small world. It looked so helpless, so vulnerable. But the data streams continued. Weapon specifications, energy readings, deployment strategies. The humans were holding nothing back. They were showing him everything. Why? Vexthor asked finally. Why reveal your strengths? If you have such power, why not simply attack us? Jake and Lisa exchanged glances. Lisa nodded, and Jake answered. Because, Admiral, we know what we are. We are the species that split the atom and used it to destroy our own cities before we learned to use it for power. We are the people who poisoned our own air and water before we learned to clean them. We have made every mistake a young species can make, and we survived them all. We learned that the greatest strength is not in having weapons, but in knowing when not to use them. The timer continued counting down. 38 minutes. 37. The fate of 2 civilizations hung in the balance, waiting for one admiral's pride to battle with his wisdom. Admiral Vexthor stood motionless on his bridge for a long moment. His 4 eyes studied the data streams that continued to flow across his screens. Behind him, his officers worked frantically, trying to verify the impossible claims the humans had made. Admiral, Commander Zrek approached carefully. Our deep scans are picking up anomalies. That asteroid field near the fourth planet, the heat signatures are wrong. They're too uniform, too organized. And the moon, another officer added. There are vast hollow spaces inside it. Our initial scans missed them because they're shielded, but now that we know what to look for. Vex Thor raised one of his 4 hands, silencing them. His pride burned like acid in his chest. The Krathan Empire had never backed down. 300 conquered worlds stood as testament to their might. His own reputation had been built on 30 successful invasions. He was Vex Thor, the unstoppable. Vex Thor, the conqueror. They are clever, he said finally. But cleverness is not strength. These humans want us to believe they have turned their entire system into a weapon. It's an elaborate deception. Sir, Zrek said hesitantly. What if it's not? Vex Thor turned all 4 eyes on his subordinate. Are you suggesting we retreat? That we run from primitives who haven't even colonized their own moon openly? I'm suggesting we consider the data, Admiral. If they truly have antimatter production at these scales, numbers on a screen, Vex Thor roared. Where are their fleets? Where are their warriors? They hide behind false data and expect us to flee like frightened prey. On Earth, in the underground command bunker, General Sam Torres watched the alien fleet on his displays. Around him, dozens of officers monitored every aspect of Earth's defense systems. The mood was tense but controlled. Status report, Sam ordered. All hidden assets are on standby, reported Captain Tony Martinez. The lunar mass drivers are targeted and ready. The atmospheric nanoswarm is primed but dormant. We can activate everything within 7 seconds of your order. Sam nodded. On his personal screen, he watched the countdown timer. 25 minutes remained. He opened a channel to Jake on the orbital station. Commander Sullivan, any response from the Krathan fleet? They're scanning everything, sir, Jake replied. Their sensors are sweeping the entire system. They have to be seeing the anomalies, but they're not leaving. No, sir, they're not leaving. Sam closed his eyes for a moment. He had hoped it wouldn't come to this. When humanity had first discovered they were not alone, when they had intercepted the first alien transmissions 200 years ago, they had made a choice. They could have announced themselves, could have reached out in friendship. Instead, they had listened. They had learned, and what they had learned had terrified them. The galaxy was full of empires, full of conquerors, species that saw other worlds as resources to be claimed. Humanity had looked at its own history, at the conquistadors and colonizers, and recognized the pattern. So they had hidden, they had built, they had prepared. Sir, Amy Rodriguez called out. The Krathan fleet is moving. They're advancing toward Earth. Sam opened his eyes. How many? All of them, sir. 4,000 ships moving in formation. On the Krathan flagship, Vex Thor felt satisfaction flow through him. His fleet moved as one, a perfect display of imperial might. The tiny blue world grew larger on his screens. Admiral, his weapons officer reported, we'll be in orbital bombardment range in 40 minutes. Excellent. Prepare all weapons. We'll give them one final chance to surrender when we reach orbit. If they refuse, we glass their major cities. Sir, Zrek tried one more time. The humans' data, their warnings, are the desperate lies of a species facing extinction, Vex Thor finished. I've heard such claims before, Commander. The Altarians claimed they had planet-killing weapons. They had nothing. The Deneb Coalition said their shields were impenetrable. We broke them in 3 hours. Every species facing conquest suddenly discovers courage and imagination. But imagination cannot stop plasma beams. Back on the orbital station, Jake watched the approaching fleet with growing dread. He opened a channel to the Krathan flagship. Admiral Vex Thor, please reconsider. You're making a mistake. We don't want this fight. Vex Thor appeared on the screen, his 4 eyes gleaming with confidence. Then surrender, human. Kneel before the Empire and you will be spared. We can't do that, Jake said quietly. We've seen what your Empire does to conquered worlds. We've monitored your transmissions for decades. We know about the slave mines on Altair 5. We know about the extinction of the Zanari people. We know what surrender means. Then you know what resistance means as well. Vexthor replied coldly. Death. The connection ended. Lisa Chen stood in the command bunker, her hands clasped behind her back. She had made these decisions years ago, had run through this scenario 1,000 times in simulations. But simulation was different from reality. In simulations, the numbers were just numbers. Now, those numbers represented lives. General Torres, she said formally. You have authorization for full defensive deployment, all restrictions lifted. Sam nodded grimly. All stations, this is General Torres. Execute Broken Arrow. I repeat, execute Broken Arrow. All hidden assets go hot. Across the solar system, humanity's true face revealed itself. The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter suddenly came alive with energy signatures. What had appeared to be random space rocks split open, revealing fusion reactors and weapon systems. 800 camouflaged battleships powered up their engines, shedding the rock and ice that had hidden them for decades. On the moon, massive doors opened across the surface. Railguns the size of skyscrapers extended from hidden silos. The Lunar Mass Driver System, the largest kinetic weapon ever built by human hands, began its charging sequence. Mars seemed to crack like an egg. What had looked like natural canyons were revealed to be camouflaged trenches, hiding planetary defense cannons. The polar ice caps split apart as missile silos opened, each one containing antimatter warheads that could vaporize a city. On the Crathen Bridge, alarms began screaming. Admiral! The sensor officer's voice cracked with panic. Energy signatures everywhere. The humans. They weren't lying. Vexthor stared at his displays in disbelief. Where moments ago had been empty space and harmless rocks, now there were weapons. Thousands upon thousands of weapons. The entire solar system had transformed into a fortress. This is impossible, he whispered. How could they hide this? Sir, we're detecting antimatter signatures from the human vessels. Confirmed antimatter weapons charging. Their battleships are moving to intercept us, 800 confirmed with more powering up. The moon is... Admiral, the entire moon is a weapon. Vexthor's 4 hands gripped his command chair. His pride warred with the growing fear in his chest. The humans had told him the truth. They had warned him. They had given him every piece of information, and he had dismissed it as lies. Jake's face appeared on the screen again, unbidden. The human looked tired and sad. Admiral, you still have time. Turn your fleet around, leave our system. We've revealed our defenses, but we haven't fired a single shot. You can still choose peace. You dare to threaten the Crathen Empire? Vexthor snarled, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. We're not threatening you, Jake replied. We're still warning you. Look at your sensors, Admiral. Count our weapons. Run your calculations. You have 4,000 ships. We have a solar system turned into a fortress. How many of your ships will survive? How many of your people will you lose? And for what? One planet that doesn't want you here? The bridge of the Dominator had gone silent. Every officer was looking at their admiral, waiting for orders. Outside, the human fleet was moving into position, but they weren't attacking. They were simply waiting. They could have ambushed us, Zrek said quietly. They could have attacked. When we first arrived, when we didn't know about their defenses, they didn't. Vexthor's 4 eyes closed. The weight of command pressed down on him like a mountain. 300 successful conquests. 300 worlds taken for the Empire. His entire life had been built on victory, but those victories had been against species that fought desperately with whatever they had. None of them had turned their entire solar system into a weapon. None of them had spent 2 centuries preparing for this exact moment, and none of them had warned him. None of them had shown him their strength and asked him to leave. Admiral, the navigation officer reported, we'll reach Earth's orbit in 15 minutes. 15 minutes to decide. 15 minutes to choose between his pride and his fleet. 15 minutes to decide if the 301st conquest was worth the price the humans had shown him he would pay. The timer on the human station showed 12 minutes remaining. Jake, Lisa, Sam, and thousands of other humans waited. Their fingers hovered over triggers that could unleash devastation beyond imagination. But they waited. They hoped. Because as they had told the Admiral, humanity's greatest strength wasn't their weapons. It was knowing when not to use them. The timer showed 5 minutes, then 4, then 3. Admiral Vexithor stood rigid on his bridge, his 4 eyes fixed on the blue planet growing larger in his view screen. His officers remained silent, waiting for the order that would either begin the attack or save their lives. The weight of 4,000 ships and 12 million Krathan soldiers rested on his next words. "Admiral," Commander Zrek spoke softly. "Your orders?" Vexthor's pride burned like poison in his veins. He was the unstoppable force of the Krathan Empire. He had never retreated, never failed. The Emperor himself had given him this fleet, this mission. To return empty-handed would mean disgrace, perhaps even execution. But to proceed might mean annihilation. "The humans show us their weapons but don't fire," he said, his voice rough. "Why? If they have such power, why not strike first?" "Perhaps they really don't want war," Zrek suggested carefully. "Or perhaps their weapons are not as powerful as they claim. Perhaps they can't sustain a real battle." Vexthor's 4 hands clenched. "There's only one way to know for certain." On Earth, President John Baker stood in the Situation Room of the White House. Though the bunker beneath Cheyenne Mountain was safer, he had refused to leave the Capitol. If Earth was going to burn, he would burn with it. "Mr. President," an aide approached. "The Krathan fleet has reached our outer atmosphere. They're not responding to any further communications." John nodded slowly. He was 73 years old, had been president for 6 years, and had hoped to retire without ever facing this moment. But hope and reality were often strangers to each other. "Connect me to all defense stations," he ordered. Within seconds, his image appeared on screens throughout the solar system, on the lunar bases, the Mars colonies, the hidden battleships, and the orbital platforms. Every human defender saw their president's weathered face. "Men and women of Earth," John began. "In the next few minutes, we may be forced to reveal what 2 centuries of preparation have built. I want you to know that whatever happens, you stand not as soldiers of nations, but as defenders of humanity itself. We offered peace. We provided warning. We gave them every chance to leave. If they force our hand, we will show the galaxy that humanity, when cornered, does not yield." The timer hit 0. On the Krathan flagship, Vexthor made his choice. "All ships," he commanded. "Begin atmospheric entry. Prepare for planetary bombardment." The massive Krathan fleet began its descent. The first ships pierced Earth's upper atmosphere, their shields glowing orange from the friction. They descended in perfect formation, weapons charging, ready to rain destruction on the cities below. They made it exactly 3 kilometers into the atmosphere. Then the sky came alive. The atmospheric nanoswarm activated instantly. Billions upon billions of microscopic machines that had been dormant in Earth's atmosphere for over a century suddenly woke up. They had been designed for one purpose: to destroy any technology not broadcasting the correct identification signals. The first Krathan ship to encounter the swarm was a destroyer called the Blade of Conquest. Its crew watched in horror as their view screen began to dissolve. The nanoswarm ate through the hull like acid, consuming metal and energy shields with equal hunger. Within seconds, the proud warship was falling apart, its pieces scattering through the sky like burning rain. "Pull up! Pull up!" Vexthor roared. "All ships, emergency ascent!" But the nanoswarm was everywhere. It moved like a living cloud, intelligent and hungry. Ships throughout the fleet began reporting hull breaches. Weapon systems failed, engines died. The magnificent Krathan armada began falling from the sky. "Admiral, we've lost 40 ships already," an officer screamed. "The atmosphere itself is attacking us." From her position on the lunar defense grid, Colonel Emma Watson gave the order. Her crews had been waiting for. "All batteries fire. Give them everything we've got." The moon spoke with the voice of gods. Railguns that had been charging for the full hour of warning unleashed their projectiles. Massive tungsten rods, each the size of a building, accelerated to 90% the speed of light. They crossed the distance between the moon and the Krathan fleet in seconds. The first rod hit a Krathan battleship dead center. The kinetic energy released was equivalent to a 50-megaton nuclear bomb. The battleship didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist, vaporized in an instant along with 3 smaller ships that had been too close. More rods followed. The lunar surface erupted with launch after launch, turning the moon into humanity's hammer. Evasive maneuvers, Vexthor commanded, but it was useless. At 90% the speed of light, the projectiles were impossible to dodge. His fleet was caught between the hungry nanoswarm below and the kinetic death from above. Captain Tony Martinez commanded the USS Texas, one of humanity's concealed battleships. His ship had been disguised as a cargo hauler for 40 years, drifting between Earth and Mars, pretending to carry supplies. Now its true nature was revealed. "All ships, engage at will," Tony ordered. "Show them what we've been hiding." The human fleet moved with practiced precision. They had trained for this moment in countless simulations. Every captain knew their role, every gunner knew their target. Antimatter torpedoes streaked through space, each one capable of destroying a city. Gravitational pulse weapons distorted space itself, crushing Krathan ships like tin cans. On Earth, General Sam Torres watched the battle from his command center. The holographic display showed the Krathan fleet being torn apart. It should have been a moment of triumph, but Sam felt only sadness. "Sir," Amy Rodriguez reported, "the Krathans are trying to retreat, but they're caught in the nanoswarm field. They can't climb fast enough." "Can we call off the swarm?" Sam asked. "Negative, sir. Once activated, it runs its full program. It'll dissipate in another 10 minutes. But by then," Sam understood. By then, most of the Krathan fleet would be gone. Admiral Vexthor's bridge was in chaos. Sparks flew from damaged consoles. The lights flickered as power systems failed. Through his view screen, he could see his magnificent fleet dying. Ships fell burning through Earth's atmosphere. Others drifted powerless in space, torn apart by human weapons. "Admiral," Zrek stumbled to his side, green blood flowing from a cut on his head. "We've lost 2,000 ships, half the fleet is gone. 2,000 ships, 6 million lives. Gone in minutes." "They warned us," Vexthor whispered. "They told us exactly what would happen." A human face appeared on his failing view screen. It was Jake Sullivan, still at his post on the orbital station. "Admiral, eject your emergency pods now," Jake said urgently. "The nanoswarm is programmed to ignore life pods. We'll let your survivors leave." "Why?" Vexthor asked, his voice broken. "Why show mercy now?" "Because we're not monsters," Jake replied. "We're defenders. There's a difference. Save who you can." "Admiral, please." Vexthor looked around his dying bridge. His pride had cost the Empire 2,000 ships. His arrogance had killed 6 million of his people. The humans had begged him to leave. They had shown him their strength. They had given him every opportunity to avoid this. "All ships," he commanded, his voice heavy with defeat. "Deploy emergency pods. All hands abandon ship." Thousands of escape pods erupted from the dying Krathan fleet. True to Jake's word, the nanoswarm ignored them, flowing around the small craft like water around stones. The lunar batteries held their fire. The human fleet stopped shooting. In 10 minutes, it was over. The Krathan Empire's grand invasion fleet was reduced to a field of debris orbiting Earth. Of 4,000 ships, only 47 survived intact. Those that had remained far enough from Earth to avoid the nanoswarm. The rest were gone, either vaporized by human weapons or dissolved by the atmospheric defenses. But the escape pods were allowed to flee. Hundreds of thousands of Krathan survivors were permitted to retreat to the remaining ships. Admiral Vexthor stood in his escape pod, watching the debris field that had been his fleet. His 4 eyes saw the truth that his pride had blinded him to. The humans hadn't been bluffing. They had told him exactly what they possessed, had shown him precisely what would happen if he attacked. He had thought their honesty was weakness. He had been wrong. Their honesty had been strength, the strength to offer an enemy the truth and the chance to make the right choice. A message came through on his pod's emergency communicator. It was from Earth's President Baker. "Admiral Vexthor," the president said, "you're free to leave with your survivors. Tell your empire what happened here. Tell them that humanity wants peace, but we will defend ourselves. Tell them that we warned you, gave you every chance to avoid this outcome, and tell them that the next fleet that enters our system won't receive a warning. They'll simply cease to exist. The pod's small engines engaged, carrying Vexthor toward one of the surviving ships. Behind him, Earth's atmosphere still sparkled with the fading nanoswarm, like glitter in the sunlight. The moon's weapons had gone silent. The human fleet held position but didn't pursue. They had won. But more than that, they had won while showing restraint. They had destroyed only what threatened them and allowed the rest to flee. As his pod approached, the rescue ship, Vexthor understood something that would haunt him for the rest of his life. The humans' greatest weapon hadn't been their nanoswarms, or their railguns, or their antimatter torpedoes. It had been their willingness to tell the truth and give their enemy a choice. The debris field stretched from Earth to Mars. Pieces of Krathan warships tumbled through space, catching sunlight and creating a glittering river of destruction. Some pieces were still glowing, heated by the violence of their destruction. Others were being slowly consumed by the last remnants of the nanoswarm that had followed them out of the atmosphere. On Earth, the cities were silent. 700,000 people were dead, killed not by enemy fire but by falling debris. New York had lost 40,000 when a Krathan destroyer's engine core had crashed into Manhattan. Beijing had suffered similar losses. London, Moscow, Tokyo, every major city bore scars from the rain of alien metal. President John Baker stood in the ruins of Central Park. The crater where the engine core had hit was still smoking. Around him, rescue workers searched for survivors, their faces covered with masks to protect against the alien toxins in the air. Mr. President, General Sam Torres approached, his uniform dusty from the debris. "We should get you back to the bunker. The air isn't safe." John shook his head. "These are my people, General. If they have to breathe this air, so do I." He walked to where a medical team was treating injured civilians. A young girl, maybe 10 years old, lay on a stretcher. Her leg was broken, her face covered in cuts. She looked up at the president with wide eyes. "Did we win?" she asked in a small voice. John knelt beside her, taking her small hand in his weathered one. "Yes, sweetheart, we won." "Then why does it hurt so much?" The president had no answer for that. Victory in space was never clean, never simple. The enemy was gone, but the cost remained. In the Lunar Command Center, Colonel Emma Watson reviewed the battle data with her staff. The numbers were staggering. In 12 minutes of combat, they had destroyed nearly 2,000 alien warships. It was the largest space battle in known galactic history, and humanity had won decisively. "Ma'am," her aide approached with a tablet. "We're receiving transmissions from 17 different alien governments. They all want to know what just happened." Emma looked at the data. The battle had been visible from half the galaxy. The energy signatures from the antimatter explosions, the gravitational pulses, the massive kinetic strikes, all of it had been detected by civilizations hundreds of light years away. "What are they saying?" Emma asked. "They're afraid, ma'am. They want to know if humanity is planning to expand, if we're going to become conquerors like the Krathan Empire." Emma sighed. This was always the risk. By revealing their strength, humanity had announced itself as a major military power. Other species would now see them as either a potential ally or a terrible threat. On the orbital defense station, Jake Sullivan hadn't left his post in 36 hours. His eyes were red from exhaustion, but he couldn't rest. Not yet. There was too much to do. "Commander," Amy Rodriguez called out. "We're tracking the surviving Krathan ships. They're gathering at the edge of the system." "How many made it?" Jake asked. 47 ships, sir. They're collecting escape pods. We estimate about 800,000 survivors from a force of 12 million. Jake closed his eyes. 12 million beings had entered their system. Less than 1 million were leaving. Even in victory, the numbers were horrifying. "Sir," Amy continued, "should we let them go?" "Yes," Jake said without hesitation. "We've made Our point. Let them return home and tell their empire what happened here. In the depths of space aboard one of the surviving Krathen ships, Admiral Vexthor stood in what had been a cargo bay, now converted into an emergency medical center. Thousands of wounded Krathens lay on makeshift beds. The air was thick with the smell of blood and pain. Commander Zrek approached, his left arm in a sling. Admiral, we've collected all the pods we can find. The humans are allowing us to leave. How many? Vexthor asked, though he dreaded the answer. 840,000 survivors, sir, out of 12 million. Vexthor's 4 eyes closed. Each of those numbers was a life, a soldier with a family, a crew member with dreams, all gone because of his pride. Set course for home, he ordered quietly. Maximum speed. Sir, what will we tell the Emperor? Vexthor looked at the wounded around him. Many would die before they reached Krathen space. Others would live but never fight again. All because he had ignored a warning. We tell him the truth, Vexthor said. We tell him that humanity offered us peace and we chose war. We tell him that they warned us, showed us their weapons, begged us to leave. And we tell him that they were merciful even in victory. Back on Earth, Lisa Chen stood in the United Nations Assembly Hall. Representatives from every nation on Earth had gathered, along with delegates from the hidden colonies who had revealed themselves during the battle. For the first time in 2 centuries, all of humanity was represented in one room. Ladies and gentlemen, Lisa began. Today, we revealed ourselves to the galaxy. We can no longer hide. The question now is, what kind of species do we want to be? Chinese delegate stood. We have the most powerful military in known space. We could expand, take worlds, build an empire of our own. The British representative shook her head. That would make us no better than the Krathens. We developed these. Weapons for defense, not conquest. But can we remain purely defensive, asked the Indian delegate. Now that the galaxy knows our strength, they'll either fear us or want to steal our technology. Lisa raised her hand for silence. These are questions we must answer. But first, we must tend to our wounded and rebuild our cities. The war lasted 12 minutes. The recovery will take years. In the following weeks, humanity began the long process of cleaning up. The debris field was carefully collected and studied. Krathen technology was reverse-engineered, adding to humanity's already formidable arsenal. The cities were rebuilt, stronger than before. But the most important work was diplomatic. Ambassador Katie Phillips was appointed to lead humanity's first official contact with the galactic community. Her office was flooded with messages from alien governments, some offering alliance, others demanding explanations, many simply expressing shock. Katie's first official act was to broadcast a message to all known civilizations. This is Ambassador Phillips of the United Earth Federation. We acknowledge that recent events have introduced humanity to the galactic community in a dramatic fashion. We want to be clear about our intentions. Humanity seeks peaceful coexistence. We will trade. We will share knowledge. We will participate in galactic civilization. But we will not be conquered. We will not be threatened. And we will defend any species that faces the same aggression we faced. Our strength exists not for conquest, but for protection. We hope to be your neighbors, your trading partners, perhaps even your friends, but we will never be your victims. The message was received with mixed reactions across the galaxy. Some species saw it as a threat. Others saw it as hope. Finally, someone who could stand up to the empire builders. 3 months after the battle, an unexpected visitor arrived at Earth. A single Krathen ship, broadcasting peace signals and requesting permission to approach. On board was Admiral Vexthor himself. Jake Sullivan met him at the orbital station. The Admiral looked different, his pride replaced by something resembling wisdom. Admiral, Jake greeted him carefully. This is unexpected. Commander Sullivan, Vexthor's 4 eyes fixed on the human. I came to deliver a message from the Emperor, and a personal one from myself. Go on. The Emperor acknowledges humanity's sovereignty. The Krathen Empire will not return to this system. Furthermore, we're willing to sign a non-aggression pact. Jake nodded. And your personal message? Vex Thor's four hands clasped together in what Jake recognized as a Krathen gesture of respect. You warned me. You told me the exact truth. You gave me every chance to avoid that battle. I didn't listen. 11 million of my people died because of my arrogance. I came to say what I should have said then. We withdraw. Peacefully. It's a hard lesson, Jake said quietly. We learned it ourselves centuries ago. Sometimes the hardest thing for a warrior to do is choose not to fight. Vexthor looked at the blue planet below. Your species is young by galactic standards, yet you possess wisdom it took my people millennia to learn, and some of us still haven't learned it. We learned it the hard way, Jake replied, by nearly destroying ourselves first. As Vexthor's ship departed, Jake stood at the observation window. Earth turned slowly below, bearing new scars but still beautiful, still home. They had revealed themselves to the galaxy. They had shown their strength. But more importantly, they had shown their restraint. The Empire had been warned. They had entered Earth's atmosphere anyway. And in doing so, they had taught the galaxy a lesson that would reshape interstellar politics forever. Humanity was not to be trifled with, not because they were the strongest, but because they were strong enough to show mercy. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Sol. The debris field had been cleared, the cities rebuilt, and the 700,000 dead had been mourned and buried. Earth looked almost normal again from space, except for the new orbital defense platforms that gleamed openly in the sunlight. Humanity was done hiding. The Galactic Council had called an emergency assembly on Centaurus Station, a massive structure that floated in neutral space between 3 major galactic powers. Representatives from 312 species had gathered, more than had ever assembled in one place before. They had all come for one reason: to meet the humans. Ambassador Katie Phillips stood before the vast assembly hall. She was 45 years old, had spent 20 years as a diplomat on Earth, but nothing had prepared her for this. Behind her stood a small delegation of humans, scientists, soldiers, artists, and teachers. They were meant to show the diversity of humanity, though Katie knew that to most of the aliens all humans looked the same. The council chamber was designed to accommodate different species. Some sections were filled with water for aquatic beings. Others had different atmospheric mixtures. The gravity varied in different zones. It was a marvel of engineering and cooperation, proof that different species could work together. The Altaran representative spoke first. Their species looked like tall, thin trees with crystalline leaves that chimed when they moved. Ambassador Phillips, your species hid from us for 2 centuries. You developed weapons in secret. You turned your entire system into a fortress. Why should we trust you now? Katie had expected this question. Because we could have remained hidden. Our stealth technology is advanced enough that we could have continued avoiding detection indefinitely. We revealed ourselves by choice, to defend our home. We didn't attack anyone. We didn't expand into other systems. We simply said no to being conquered. A Zanari delegate, one of the few survivors of their nearly extinct species, stood up. They looked like large floating jellyfish with bioluminescent organs. You destroyed 2,000 Krathen ships in 12 minutes. No species has ever shown such military power. How do we know you won't become conquerors yourselves? Because we've been watching you all for 200 years, Katie replied. We've seen empires rise and fall. We've seen what happens when power corrupts. We've seen species destroyed by those who claim to be bringing civilization. We learned from your mistakes as well as our own. The Krathen representative was present too, not Vexthor, but a younger diplomat named Erix. She stood on 4 legs, her 4 arms folded. The humans speak truth. They warned us. They showed us their power and asked us to leave. We chose war and paid the price. But they allowed our survivors to flee. They showed mercy when they could have destroyed us completely. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. The Krathens admitting defeat and defending their defeaters was unprecedented. An ancient Delphini elder floated forward in their water-filled mobility sphere. The Delphini were one of the oldest spacefaring species, respected by all for their wisdom. "Tell us, human, what do you want from the galaxy?" Katie took a breath. "We want to trade, we want to learn, we want to explore. We have technologies that could benefit everyone. Medical advances, energy production methods, agricultural techniques that could feed billions. We're willing to share, but on one condition: no one tries to conquer anyone else in our presence." "You would police the galaxy?" The Alteran's crystalline leaves rang with alarm. "No," Katie said firmly, "but we will defend anyone who asks for our help against unprovoked aggression. We've hidden for 2 centuries watching species be destroyed by empires. We won't watch anymore." Back on Earth, Jake Sullivan had been promoted to admiral and given command of Earth's orbital defenses. He stood in his office looking at reports from across the solar system. The 47 hidden colonies had all revealed themselves, adding their voices to humanity's chorus. Mars was expanding its settlements. The moon was being properly colonized now that its military nature was public. His daughter Lucy, now 16, visited him at the station. She had grown up in a world preparing for war, and now she was seeing the aftermath of victory. "Dad," she said, looking out at the stars, "do you think we did the right thing, revealing ourselves?" Jake put his hand on her shoulder. "We couldn't hide forever, sweetheart. Eventually someone would have found us. Better to reveal ourselves on our terms, showing both our strength and our restraint. But now everyone knows how powerful we are. Won't they be afraid of us?" "Some will," Jake admitted. "But fear and respect often walk hand in hand. The key is to show them they have nothing to fear if they come in peace." At the Galactic Council, the debate continued for hours. Some species argued that humanity should be quarantined, isolated until they could be trusted. Others suggested that humanity's technology should be shared forcefully for the good of all. Still others wanted to form alliances, seeing humanity as a potential protector against the various empires that plagued the galaxy. Finally, Katie was asked to leave while the council deliberated. She and her delegation waited in an anteroom, watching the distant stars through a transparent wall. "Think they'll accept us?" asked Dr. Paul Harrison, one of the scientists in her delegation. "They don't have much choice," Katie replied. "We're here whether they accept us or not. The question is whether we'll be neighbors or enemies." After 6 hours, they were called back. The Delphini elder spoke for the council. "Ambassador Phillips, the Galactic Council has reached a decision. Humanity is recognized as a sovereign spacefaring species with full rights and responsibilities under galactic law. Trade agreements will be negotiated. Cultural exchanges will be welcomed. However, there are conditions." Katie nodded. "We're listening. Your military technology must not be sold or given to other species without council approval. Your defensive systems must remain defensive. Any expansion beyond your current territory must be approved by the council, and you must agree to mediation before taking any military action against another species." "And if we're attacked?" Katie asked. "Self-defense is always permitted, but we've seen what your self-defense looks like. We ask that you use restraint." Katie consulted quietly with her delegation, then turned back to the council. "We accept these conditions with one addition. Any species that requests our protection from unprovoked aggression will receive it, regardless of council approval. We won't stand by while others suffer what almost happened to us," the council murmured, but the Delphini elder raised a fin for silence. "This is acceptable. Welcome to the galactic community, humanity. May your presence bring the peace you claim." To seek, as the assembly dispersed, various representatives approached the human delegation. Some wanted trade agreements. Others wanted to learn about human technology. The Zanari delegate floated close to Katie, their bioluminescent organs pulsing with emotion. "Your species could have destroyed the Krathens completely," they said. "Why didn't you?" "Because genocide is never the answer," Katie replied. "We've come close to destroying ourselves multiple times in our history. We learned that mercy is not weakness. It's the ultimate strength. The Krathens nearly destroyed my species. Only a few thousand of us remain. I'm sorry for your loss. If you ever need protection, humanity stands ready to help. The Zanari pulsed brighter. Perhaps there is hope for the galaxy yet. Back on Earth, President Baker addressed the world from the rebuilt United Nations building. His speech was broadcast not just to Earth, but to the colonies and to the galaxy beyond. Today, humanity takes its place among the stars not as conquerors, but as guardians. We've shown that we will defend ourselves, but we've also shown that we prefer peace. To our fellow humans, I say this. We have a responsibility now. The galaxy is watching. Let's show them the best of what humanity can be. To our new neighbors in the galaxy, I say this. We come in peace. We offer our friendship, our trade, and our protection to those who need it. But make no mistake, the lesson of the Krathen Empire stands. Those who come to us with open hands will find us welcoming. Those who come with closed fists will find us ready. In the months that followed, humanity integrated into galactic society faster than anyone expected. Human medical technology saved entire species from plagues. Human agricultural methods ended famines on a dozen worlds. Human defensive technology was licensed to smaller species who had lived in fear of conquest for generations. But perhaps the most significant change came from the Krathen Empire itself. Admiral Vexthor had returned home and told his story to anyone who would listen. The empire that had conquered 300 worlds began to reconsider its ways. They started releasing some of their conquered territories, allowing species to regain their freedom. The humans taught us something, Vexthor would say in his speeches. Strength without wisdom is just destruction. True power comes from knowing when not to use it. 1 year after the battle, a monument was unveiled on Earth's moon. It was a simple sphere made from melted Krathen hull metal, inscribed with words, in every known galactic language. Here humanity chose revelation over concealment. Here we warned before we struck. Here we showed mercy and victory. Let all who see this remember. We are not warriors by choice, but by necessity. Come in peace, and find peace. Come in war and find warriors, Jake.